181। अग्नि और वायु का गहरा संबंध है। वायु के बिना अग्नि नहीं जल सकती और अग्नि से वायु को वेग मिलता है। इस वैज्ञानिक तथ्य को वेद मंत्र में नीचे लिखी रीति से स्पष्ट किया है। आदस्य वातोः अनुवातिः। अग्नि की लपटों के पीछे वायु चलती है। देव पांच के मेल से सृष्टि रची भगवान, मिलकर करते काम वे, करते वेद बखान। वायु और फिर आग का गहरा बंधन तात, बिन वायु ना आग चलत, चलत आग से वात। वात मीन्स वायु, हवा, वात। आग लगे जब वन किसी, वायु उसे फैलाए, बिना वात के आग वह शीघ्र ही बुझ जाए। गर्मी में अतिताप जब वायु होत सहाय, शीतल वायु आय कर जन को सुखी बनाए। जब भी आग जन चलती पाए, वायु उसको और बढ़ाए। वात व आग संग रह पाए, सभी विश्व के काम चलाए। Let's recite that Vedic prayers also. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, Tatsavitrevarenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Satgamya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति 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 ओम। We are on chapter 16. And in this chapter 16, Rishi Astavakra ji is giving some instructions, which are very precious tips for the sadhak, the practitioner who is struggling in the higher levels of meditation. So that means that practitioner is practicing, is meditating, has full faith in it, but cannot move up where he should move up. So that's why he is giving these tips in these verses. There are altogether 11 verses in this chapter. Okay, so because sometimes when we are meditating, our ego is the one which really jerks us. So at the highest moment, the ego comes in between and then we fall back again. So he's telling us what to do. Achakshva shrinu vatat nana shastrani anekshah, tathapi na tav swasthyam sarv vismaranat rite. Achakshva means speak. Shrinu, hear. Va means or, tat means son. Nana shastrani, diverse scriptures, many scriptures. Anekshaha, many times or many ways. Tathapi, still. Na means not, tav means you. Swasthayam, self-abidance. Sarva vismaranat, through forgetting all. Rite, rite means accept. Rishi Astavakra is saying, my son, you may speak many times in many ways upon the various scriptures or hear them, but you cannot get established in the self unless you forget all. Okay? Pretty deep message in there, because Astavakra, he's talking about the absolute. He is teaching us how to transcend it all. Transcend our body also, mind also, intellect also. So that's why he's saying you may study all the scriptures. Sure, you need to study in the beginning. But you can become very proficient also in the contents of these scriptures. You can give eloquent discourses also upon all of them. But if you stay only at that level, you have only understood the word meaning of the scriptures and not the truth that is indicated by these brilliant statements of the scriptures. And what is the meaning behind this? That you need to realize this magnificent state of the peaceful self, which he calls self-abidance. Okay, so again, the reading, hearing, studying, those are means. They are necessary means, definitely. But we got to remember they are only means. With the help of the means, we are supposed to establish in our self. And that's what's called self-abidance. So this total forgetfulness, sarv vismaran, alone is the way. Sarv vismaran. And every day when we meditate, that's what we are doing. We are forgetting about the body. That's what detachment is. Forget about that body at that time. Don't think that you are meditating. Sure, you got to keep your back straight, but forget about your straight back. Forget about how much you know. All you got to do is just abide in yourself. So this is a sarva vismaran. When the meditator forgets his body, mind and intellect, or even the worldly objects, emotions, thoughts, ego, everything ends at that time. Few minutes a day. Okay? So even the knowledge of the scriptures is only a memory. Sometimes this kind of a memory crystallizes our ego. So we got to be very careful. So ego itself is a bundle of memories. That I have studied so much, I know so much, I have done so much, I have given so much. All bundle of memories. So because if a stranger comes and asks us, who are you? It's from the memory we tell that, hey, my name is this. Where do we live? That's from the memory. Sure, it's needed for the transactional purposes, but when we are trying to become one with that highest, we have to learn how to forget that. And that's the only way when we leave this body, if you want to really go at the higher place, you got to practice it now. Detach from it all. Because today our mind, if we look at it, it is preoccupied so much with the past experiences. And that's why we have forgotten our real nature. We have to make an effort to remember our real nature. It should be the other way around with the help of the practice. We should have to make an effort to remember the worldly things. More and more remembrance of the real. Okay, so this is the state of freedom. Because right now we are in a state of bondage. When we can reverse it, that becomes a state of freedom. Okay. In the Katha Upanishad, the same kind of a message was given. The Atma cannot be attained by the study of the Vedas, nor by intelligence, nor by much hearing. It is gained by him who chooses it alone. To him, this Atma reveals its true nature. न आत्मः प्रवचनेन लभ्यो न मेध्या न बहुना श्रुतेन. यम्यवेश वृणुते तेन लभस्य तस्य एष आत्मा विवृणुते तनु स्वाम. So throw away. So when he says throw away or detach, that really means forget the letter of the texts. Letter meaning accept and live the spirit of the text. That's what he's telling us. So do not stay in the Shabad Jal, as they say. We don't have to memorize the words. We got to remember the essence and do as the scripture tells us to do. Okay? So now in the next one he says, Bhogam karam samadhim vakuru vigye tathapite chitam nirast sarvasham atyartham rochishti. Bhogam, enjoyment, karam, work, samadhim, the samadhi, absorption, complete absorption. Va means or, kuru means do, vigye. Vigya means a wise one, wise person, vigya. Tathapi, yet, te means your. Chitam, mind. Nirast sarvasham, in which all desires are extinguished. Atyartham, that which is beyond objects. Rochiyashati, you will yearn for. O wise one, you may enjoy the world or undertake work or practice samadhi, but your mind will still yearn for your own true nature, which is beyond all objects and in which all desires are extinguished. All the desires are always about this physical world. He says you can do any kind of a work, or if you think that you are meditating also, or you are enjoying this. So the very fact that every person is impatient with our desires, because we haven't understood the world this way. The worries are because of the desires. Stress is because of the desires. Ego clashes are because of the desires. So that is, he says, this is, that's where it's coming from. But inherent demand of a human being is to end desiring and go beyond it. See, that's why he says you may enjoy the world or do any of these exercises, but your mind will still yearn for your own true nature. Deep down, this is what we are looking for. Sometimes we are thinking about having something, we saw something, we want it, and the minute we get it, we are calm. Why? Because it's not because of the object which we gained, it is because for that particular few moments, there is no desire. That lack of desire gave us that calmness until some other desire pops in. Lack of desire. So it's like a very scientifically, we got to look through our mind. Where is the calmness coming from? Because normally we think, no, after having this, after acquiring this, after going there, I'll be calm. No. Calmness is when we don't have a desire. And that's what Rishi Astavakra is saying, that inherent nature, that's where we need to deep into. Because even if we were to possess the whole universe, still there will be some kind of a sense of discontentment. Otherwise, the richer you are, the calmer you should be. But ordinarily, we see the opposite. The richer a person becomes, more worries and more turbulence, because there is a bitter taste of non-fulfillment. In the real sense of fulfillment, you are moving away from the fulfillment. Okay, so just note this: when he talks about enjoyment, that is at the level of the mind. See the three things he mentioned over here. Enjoyment is at the level of mind, work at the level of body, karma we do with the level of body, and the contemplation or the samadhi, when he is talking about the level of the intellect. Dhi, samadhi, the dhi is also, okay, so level of intellect. So a man is never satisfied until he rediscovers his real nature. That is the message Rishi Astavakra is giving us. Real nature, which is beyond all the upadhis. See, these are upadhis. Body, mind, intellect, they are called upadhis. Equipment. So English translation for upadhi is the equipment which have been given to us. And even their objects of pleasures or the passions or the desires, they all come from this. Okay? So we want our real nature is way beyond that. आयासात सकला दुखी न एनम जानाति कंचन अनेन एव उपदेशेन धन्य प्राप्नोति निर्वृतिम. Ayasat, from efforts. Sakal, all. Dukhi, miserable. Na enam, not this. Janati, knows. K-N-O-W. Kanchan, anyone. Anen, by this. Ev means alone. Upadeshen, instruction. Dhanya, blessed one. Prapnoti, attains. Nirvritim, liberation. Because they exert themselves, all are unhappy. But none knows over here really means appreciates this. Through this instruction alone, the Blessed One attains liberation. Okay, what is the instruction? Instruction is that rise above the upadhis. Because everybody in the society is just, we are all following each other, rushing towards the materialism. Because if there are 100 desires, we want to multiply those 100 desires into 1,000 desires. And we always compete with the person next to us. It could be our sibling, it could be a co-worker, it could be a relative. And what do we call it? We have given a very glamorous name to it. Healthy competitive life. That if I have a house which is 3,000 square feet, healthy competition, the next year I want to have a 5,000, then 10,000, then 20,000 square feet. We call it a healthy competition. That's what Rishi Astavakra is talking about. So those who stand apart with their peaceful mind, really watch this. So he's telling us, students like us who are trying to understand, who are studying also, who are practicing also, he says stand apart a little and watch. What kind of a rat race in a trap we are doing? It's a rat race. And in whatever way we may glorify this way of life, in essence, it is but the glorification of a tragedy. A person cannot sleep at night without the sleeping pills. Cannot have a peaceful, enjoyable relationship. Cannot perform the duties properly. because goal is only material advancement. This is an exhausting exertion of life which is making everybody unhappy. And paradox is that none understands this. Now this coronavirus is making us think about it, and hopefully we will learn from this. That's how Rishi Vashishta told us too. He says, Agyat parmarthen kriya matre ch tishtata. Phal karpanya yukten punsam tattva chintyate. He said, in his ignorance of the supreme state, ever exhausting himself in activities, tired with his constant anxiety for results, man never contemplates upon the reality. So in other words, the external exertion is to the level where there's no balance at all. There is no greater state of existence than the silence of the mind, wherein all vasanas have been renounced. So this message is given by Rishi Vashishta. And this instruction should be more than sufficient for any intelligent student to understand and really dissect our own life. That treacherous sea of passions we got to avoid. Then he says, number 4, Vyapare khidyate yu tu nimesh unmeshu api tasya alasya dhurinasya hai sukham na anyasya tasya chit. This is the key word in this chapter. Alasya dhurinasya. Vyapare, in the activity, khityate, feels pain. Ya means who, tu means indeed. Nimesh unmeshu, of closing and opening the eyelids. It's almost like when we wink. Api means even. Tasya alasya dhurinasya, of that master idler. Sukham, happiness. No means not. Anyasya, other. Tasya chit, of anyone. Happiness belongs to that master idler who feels distressed even at the effort of opening and closing his eyes. It belongs to none else. So he's not talking about a tamasic, alasi person. He's talking about a person who's totally absorbed in the self. In such a deep samadhi, forgetting about that even I'm in samadhi state, even opening and closing the eyes doesn't happen. In fact, the breathing is so shallow. Person next to you may feel that you are not even breathing. So that is alasya dhurnasya. So don't take it into the negative connotation. This alasya is in a very, it's a very pregnant word actually in this chapter. So activities in the outer world are expressions of the inner thought disturbances, right? If there are a lot of thoughts in our mind, then we want to be active. Over here, inner mind is totally silent. So the person is fully absorbed in the self. As he said earlier, self-abidance. And he is in the self, living the blissful infinite. He is totally unconscious of his body. And there's no disturbance in the mind. And this is called a Sahaj Samadhi. So he is not even aware of that. He is in samadhi, sahaj samadhi, such a spiritual state. So in this state of abidance in self, to even initiate a real small thought is most painful for this person. That's why he stated over here, even the winking is an insufferable affliction to him, because he's in a total blissful state. Okay. See, normally a person who's working very hard in the field, he will say that I am working so hard. When he looks at a painter painting, see, the painter is not doing anything. I am the one who's working hard. Over here, so if you just take it a little further, that a person who is sitting in meditation, the painter will say that meditator is wasting time, sitting and doing nothing. I'm at least creating some paintings. And a meditator who thinks I'm meditating, still thinking I'm meditating, this is a person who doesn't even know he's meditating. He has totally dissolved the mental fluctuations into the self. So in that sense, it's called alasya dhuryasya. Okay, so seat of the meditation, experiencing the infinite tranquility, or you can say the transcendental state. He's a master idler. He has mastered it. Alasya dhurnasya. Or you can say it like a colossal idler. Even the involuntary winking of his eyelids is an agony, a death pang. Okay? But we will never understand this until we have experienced it. Okay, so wherever we are, we got to inch up to that. First, we appreciate it theoretically, then we do what we need to do so that we can experience it also. Idam kritam idam na iti dvandhe muktam yadamana dharam arthe kam moksheshu nirpeksham tada bhavet. Idam means this, kritam means done. Idam na iti, this not, dvandhe from the pair of opposites. Muktam free. Yada means when, mana means mind. Dharam, arth, kam, moksheshu. You are all familiar with these four terms. Dharam, righteousness. Arth is wealth. Kam is desires. And moksha is liberation. So these are four purusharths. Dharam, arth, kam and moksha. Nirpeksham, indifferent. Tada means then. Bhavet means becomes. When the mind is free from such pairs of opposites, as this is done and this is not yet done, it becomes indifferent to righteousness, wealth, desire, and liberation. So again, he is talking about the person who has reached to that pinnacle. So pairs of opposites, we are familiar with this term also. Two poles of the same experience. It's almost like a magnet without a south and north pole. Normally it's a north and south. It's like a sameness. Whatever is in front of you, did it without even feeling that you did it. Because normally we have a lot in our mind. I have done this, I shouldn't have done it, I should have done this, and I got to do this. That kind of a burden on you. So this person, whatever is in front, does it without even thinking that I did it. So that's what it means when the mind is free from such pairs of opposites. Because work is done with the body. We unnecessarily put the burden on our mind. So when the mind is free from such fears of opposite, and this is done and this is not yet done. Okay, so no more any goals to be reached, because ultimate goal has been reached. So righteousness, wealth, desire, fulfillment, liberation. For a person who is abiding in the self, still doing the duties, but the duties are not in the mind. Because normally a duty, when we think that this is my duty, a duty is in the mind only when there are desires. Otherwise, duty cannot be in our mind, the desires. So he has become desireless. Then he says, Viraktaha Vishye Dveshtaha Ragi Vishye Lolupaha Graha Moksha Vihina Tu na Virakta na Ragwan. Viraktaha, unattached. Vishye Dveshtaha, one who has aversion for sense objects. Ragi, sensual. Vishye Lolupaha, one who hankers after sense objects. So in other words, we got to work on all these in order to reach to those higher levels. Graha moksha vihina. Graha means when you accept something, grahan karna. Graha. Moksha is you reject. So in that sense, these two words are used. So graha moksha vihina, one who does not accept or reject. Vihina. Tu means but, na means not, viraktaha, unattached, na means not, ragwan, attached. Ragwan. One who has aversion for sense objects is considered as not sensual. And one who covets them is sensual. But he who does not accept or reject is neither sensual nor not sensual. So it's like it's just seeing what it is, no effect on the mind that I should run away from it or I should have it. This is called Upecha vritti, indifferent. Okay, so from a standpoint of a man of perfection, because he is fully awakened to that higher level, that purity, the blissfulness, there is no world of polarity, nor a mind in him that should consciously accept the world or reject the world. No tossing. See, normally we have this tossing going on in our mind. I should accept this. This is good. This is even good for my progress. So it's already there. There's no tossing of the mind. So the play of the mind in the world of object, when we talk about passion and lust, that is called sensuality. Okay. So there can neither be acceptance nor objection. Neither can you label such an individual as a sensuous nor as not sensuous. Heyo upadhyataha tavat sansar vitap ankuraha sapriha jivati yavat ve nirvichar dashaspadam. Heya upadhya, the sense of acceptance and aversion. Heya upadhya. Tavat means so long. Sansar vitap ankuraha. Sansar is this world. Vitap ankur. Vitap is the branch, ankur is the sprout. So the branch and sprout of the sansar. Sapriha, desire. Jivati, lives. Yavat, as long as. Where means indeed. Nirvichar dashaspadam. The seat of the state of non-discrimination. Nirvichar. As long as desire, which is the root of the state of non-discrimination, exists, so long there will be indeed be the sense of acceptance and aversion, which are the branch and sprout of the tree of sansar. See, what is a sansar? Coming here again and again. That is a sansar. And he says, where does this sansar gets the branches and where does it sprout? This is from the desires. And where are the desires coming from? From that mind which keeps on tossing between I should have this, I should not do this. Acceptance and rejection. So it's like a very brilliant examination over here of the path of fall. And if you remember in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 62 and 63, Lord Krishna gave the same message to us. He said, Dhyayato Vishyan Punsaha Sangaha Teshu Jayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Abhijayate. I'm sure some of you have memorized this. Krodhat bhavati samoha sumohat samriti vibhrama. Samriti भ्रंशात बुद्धि नाशो बुद्धि नाशात pranashyati. Exactly same thing Rishi Astavakra is telling us in this chapter. So if we cannot reach up to that level, this is the reason we are not able to go above. We believe in it, but we are not practicing the fundamentals of it. And what is a fundamental? He says, Lord Krishna says, when a man thinks of objects, attachment for them arises. So it starts with the thinking. An object, we talk about it all the time. Object is not just the physical objects. Anything other than the Atma and Paramatma is object. When a man thinks of objects, attachment from them arises. From the attachment, desire is born. So normally we talk about the desire, but where did the desire come from? From the thinking of the object. Dhyayato Vishyan Punsaha. From desire arises anger. All the desires can never be fulfilled. Because desires, if we don't keep an eye on it, there's somebody else whose more desires are fulfilled. And then you get angry. You start comparing. From anger, what happens? Angry person, delusion arises. More. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. Discrimination means discernment. That intellect which cannot decide, it doesn't decide properly. From destruction of discrimination, he says the person perishes. You don't even act like a human being. So whenever we see anger in us, we should see that before anger there was something else. Before anger there was a desire. Desire, unfulfilled desire made us angry. And if we don't stop the anger there, what will happen? We will become deluded. We will lose even that discrimination of knowing who we are. As human beings, we don't even mind acting like an animal or worse than the animal. But start was thinking about the object, having the object. and not being able to have it. So that's why I said it is a path of fall. Here we want to rise up. We want to know who we are. So on one hand, sure, we are practicing, but on the other hand, we are not watching, and then we fall. So we got to keep an eye on it. So that's why Astavakra ji, right over here in the middle of this chapter, he's saying, as long as desire, which is the root of the state of non-discrimination, exists, so long there will be indeed be the sense of acceptance and aversion, which are the branch and sprout of the tree of samsara. So the desires are the very springs of non-discrimination. Because this kind of a mind loses its ability to judge the situation correctly. We are tossed. There's a confusion. Should I accept it? Should I reject it? Should I like it? Should I dislike it? It's a tossing going on. So that's why Rishi Astavakra is describing here that entire tree of worldly life stems forth from desires. But Lord Krishna said, before desires, you are thinking about that object. So that's why putting these two together even clarifies further. Because desires, they don't erupt all of a sudden. Two people seeing the same thing may not end up in the same position. So one person kept thinking about that object, the other one did not. It's not that we have to throw away the objects, but we don't have to keep on thinking about the objects. So that's where we got to nip it at the bud. Otherwise, this tree of sansar will definitely bloom. Definitely bloom. And in this tree, there will be some sour fruits, some sweet fruits. And then again, we just don't want the sour fruit. We want others to have the sour fruit, and we want to have a sweet fruit. And then there's a more struggle. So this is what Rishi Astavakra is telling us. He says, the branches and the twigs of the tree of life are all constituted of the individual's likes and dislikes, love and aversion. This is the sansar, our sansar. So we got to just think about it, contemplate upon it. Based upon this knowledge, what is my sansar? Okay, now let's stop it here. If you have any question, comment, anything you want more elaboration, please let me know. At the end, we will do a little meditation also.
Hersh, this is Raj. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
In the first shloka, they are talking about Gyan, like forget all the Gyan and rise above it.
Yeah.
But when we read Gita, Gyan Yoga by itself was considered a marg to mukti.
Yes, but it's not, he says, he's not saying that don't study. He's saying, look at the essence of the Gyan. Ultimately, you got to forget the words, just remember the essence when you are in Samadhi. That's what he's saying. Gyan Marg is definitely good, but with the Gyan Marg also, you are trying to climb up to the pinnacle.
And then forget about it.
Then, yeah, you are not forgetting, you're not forgetting the essence, but you are not just keep on thinking that, oh gosh, which verse, what was said. We don't have to memorize that. That's what he's saying. Okay?
Not chanting or...
Yeah, chanting drops down too. When you're in samadhi, see, in the beginning, if you are just using the mantra to control your mind, when you are truly in samadhi, then mantra drops down. Because you are not aware of your body, you are not aware of your mind, you are not aware of your intellect. You are truly abiding in the self.
You had also said that rise above upadhis. So is upadhi a desire or something else?
Upadhis are the layers of the personality. Body is a upadhi, mind is a upadhi, intellect is a upadhi, ego is a upadhi. Anything other than the Atma and Paramatma is upadhi. Upadhis are another way you can understand the instruments given to us. Okay? Layers of this personality. Okay? Yeah. So he's not putting down the scriptures. He's not saying don't study it, but he says remember why you are studying it. Right? See, it's just like if I'm eating food. First, I got to know what I'm eating. But ultimately, why am I eating? To nourish my body. Give the nourishment to the body. Essence is that. Okay? So sometimes we get lost into the nitty-gritties and we forget the real meaning. That's what he's telling us. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Usha.
Yes, Usha. Yes, Usha.
Unmute yourself.
Hershi, can you go through that path of fall one more time briefly, please?
Which one?
The path of fall that you just explained.
Oh, path of fall. The one, Lord Krishna, that one. Okay. So you have Bhagavad Gita with you, right, Usha? That's like a 62 and 63 verses of chapter 2. Okay. So he says, when a man thinks of objects, see, dhyayato vishyan punsa. Punsa means a being, a human being. Dhyayato means dhyan karna. So when a person thinks of objects, attachment for them arises. Attachment is a mental attachment because you're thinking about it and attachment happens. From the attachment, desire is born. From the desire arises anger. Okay. See, all the desires can never be fulfilled. Or desires keep on increasing also. So anger, that how come I cannot have it? From anger comes delusion. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. From destruction of discrimination, he perishes. Okay, we lose ourselves. We forget who we are. Haven't we seen that people, when they're angry, see, before anger, a lot has happened. When they're angry, they might say the words which they are sorry later on. That means they forgot who they are. Okay? So, dhyayato vishyan punsa sanghateshu ujjayate. Sanghat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho abhijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat samriti vibhrama. Samriti vranshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat nashyati. Because buddhi is this intellect, this power to discriminate, discernment. That's what distinguishes us from animals. So if we lose that, we are losing ourselves. Okay, so very powerful these two verses. We see that exactly the same message given to us by Rishi Astavakra. Okay? So instead of thinking about the objects, what should we do? Because as long as we have a mind, we got to think. Mind will think. That is the purpose of mind, to think. So instead of the objects, tell your mind, train your mind to think about God. That's why Guru says, I'm giving you this mantra. Recite this mantra 24/7. You can keep on doing worldly chores. That's why the famous saying, Kar se kaam, man mein ram. Kar means hands. With your hands, do the duties. Stay busy doing the duties. But in your mind, keep God. So then we won't be thinking about the objects. We won't be thinking about the people. We won't be thinking about this world. Okay, so dhyan karna. So is that clear, Misha?
Yes, it's very powerful. Yes.
Very powerful. Actually, the whole, this gives us a direction for our life, actually, these two verses. So instead of thinking about the world, we should think about God. It's as simple as that. And then we will not fall on this path. Because whatever we think about, that's where we go. If we are thinking about God all the time, we'll be one with God. While living here also, and after this journey also. There's another question.
Urmil.
Yes, Urmilji.
Urmilji, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. The last sentence you said was that once you've heard this thing about desire leading to karma getting complex and leading us to the birth and death cycle, etc. And it's all about the sansar, the tree of universe.
Yeah.
Then he says, question yourself, what is my sansar? You made me think. Now what do I think?
Yeah.
What is the root of my sansar?
Yeah, we got to look at it. This is what we need to think, because ultimately this path of spirituality is our individual path. We got to think about it. The sansar which I have created, how many branches and how many flowers and how many fruits, how many twigs, with
And
the
weeds and
sword of
thorns.
knowledge. With the sword of knowledge, I got to cut this all out. My sansar, definitely. Yeah, you said it right, Urmil.
So there's a lot of thinking I have to think too much now.
Yeah, we got to contemplate upon it. This is what, luckily we have time these days. Right? We have a lot of time to think about, hey, what have I created? Where I have gone? In other words, क्या करने आए थे, क्या करने बैठ गए? We all promised in the womb of our mothers that this time around I will attain godhood. We all promised, because we didn't like that wet, dark, upside down place. But the minute we came out, and some of us not just coming out of mother, coming out of India, came to this country, we really totally forgot ourselves.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yes, we just
complicated
that is
the branch. That is the
yes,
branch.
the big branch, and we really totally forgot. So I think the sooner we go back, it will be better. Because the journey, the end goal doesn't change, whether we have come here, how old we are. We got to just open our eyes to the reality. I think there's another question.
Sujata.
I want to comment on that. A quick follow-up to Urmil's question.
Sure,
so the ball of roots is the part that we have to work on?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's like that, what you call the tree, the upside down tree in Gita?
Yes. Yeah, exactly the same thing. Yeah, we got to think about it, and without looking around, we got to look deep within, and we got to see how I'm going to make a difference in this lifetime. Because after we leave this body, we cannot work on it. Human body has been given to us to cut, to shrink this tree. But what did we do? We expanded this tree. Okay. So yes, Jyoti.
Pankaj. Pankaj,
Yes,
you have a
Pankaj.
question? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, what is the difference between Apexa and Opecha?
Okay. Upeksha is indifference. Upeksha. Okay. And apeksha is because of that.
So
जैसे
Apexa,
अपेक्षा रखने.
the expectation,
Yes. Upeksha is indifference.
indifference. And Unapexa is no
No expectation.
expectation,
Un means without.
without.
Okay. So see, upeksha is a virtue. With
Oh,
upeksha, we will become calmer. Our mind will be stilled. With apeksha, we will
more
be
expect.
disturbed. So, right? Apeksha. Normally, we have apeksha from our relatives quite a bit. From the
Children.
society at large. Apeksha. Right? So, good. Very good. So, anybody else?
Manju, a quick question, then we have to go to Kirtan.
Okay.
For the last minute.
Yes, Manju.
Hi, Namaste Hershi. I guess I have the same confusion with Upeksha and Apeksha. And easier way I figured it out is U is always higher, like Uprati.
Yes.
Attachment to the higher.
That's
so
right.
Upeksha is again a better quality virtue, means kind of indifferent. And Apeksha is a lower one, which is we have a desire.
Yeah, when you expect, we have a desire because of something. So it's just like a, and then when we do upeksha, unapeksha, then it becomes better because you're cutting it.
Right.
And if you remember, just quickly, take you back to Yoga Darshan. Upeksha word is there. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. Those are the 4 ways Rishi Patanjali said we can control and calm our mind. Okay. So upeksha. So that was a good insight into it, Manju. Yes. Okay. So it's good to remember these terms. Very good to remember, because that's how we keep our mind sharp. Where this sharpness of the mind, we can really understand, and then ultimately we got to live through this. That's what Rishi Astavakra said. Not only remembering it, but really living it, using this knowledge at a very crossroads of our life. When very extreme desires come, disturbance comes, look within, what is really happening? What am I thinking about? Where am I going? Right? So we got to just bring this knowledge, and that's exactly what he said in the first verse, that bring this into practice, not just only remember. So anybody wants to sing, or maybe Manny can play?
Manny,
can you play then, if nobody's singing? You are our music here.
Jai Ram, Jai
Thank you very much.